Okay, so where to begin with the near-death experience? There was a bit of a build-up to that that kind of led me to that point. So I had struggled for much of my life with addiction and alcoholism. I was able to get some level of sobriety and normality in my life. I was sober for a few years, at about 3.5 years. I started to experience at that time. I was hearing voices, I was seeing things, I was hallucinating for all intents and purposes. And over a period of time of experiencing this and being involved with the mental health system and medication and all this kind of thing, that eventually led me to use drugs and alcohol again. So upon that kind of decline back into substance abuse once more, that is actually what led me to the near-death experience. So yeah, it was an accidental overdose. So I was, it was a very dark and heavy few days for me, using lots of different substances and drinking and whatnot. And yeah, how that kind of ended up for me was I remember laying on a sofa, I was unable to move, and I could feel my heart doing this kind of arrhythmia, this crazy, very disturbing beat. It was very irregular. And there then began to be gaps between this irregular heartbeat, and the gaps were getting longer and longer and longer. And then eventually, I actually felt my heart stop and it didn't restart again. And in that moment, what happened for me was from the soles of my feet moving up my body was like a wave of, to say that I kind of lost feeling in my body as this wave moved up is probably not sufficient. It was almost like my body was disappearing as this wave came up through me. And when it reached my head, I just remember being detached from my body. I was kind of floating above, looking down. I could see myself, and it was quite confusing. It was very peaceful at the time. It wasn't, I knew what was happening. I was aware that I was dying and my body was no longer functioning, but I wasn't scared. Very, very peaceful. And then, yeah, I saw myself there laying on the sofa, and I began to float upwards, and I floated through the ceiling of the room that I was in. And then all of a sudden I was just somewhere else. I was in a completely different place. Um, Somewhere I had never visited before. And the best way that I can describe where I was is home. And, it was home in a way that I've never felt that at home in my life, ever, in any place that I've ever been. And I was me, but I had no physical form. Everything was just pure energy. I didn't see any other physical forms at the time, but I felt just connected to this oneness, to this place that I knew as home. It was like a remembering almost. I had access to all of this knowledge that I didn't even necessarily ask questions. I just had answers. Within a moment, I knew that this is where we all come from. This is where we all go back to. This is the source of creation. And just levels of love and joy that words aren't really sufficient to describe how incredible that feeling was. These are feelings I didn't even know I didn't know it was possible to feel that level of love and joy as a human being. And that's what I experienced in that place. I was there for, I don't actually know how long, I was there for some time. And I remember being shown time, which was really interesting. It was like I was everything everywhere all at once. And I could see time for what it was. And it wasn't, what I was shown is it isn't actually real. Like, it's a construct because everything is happening at once. And I really experienced that in that place. I was able to see kind of the full passage of time and an instant all at once. So that was really interesting. So I got to play with that almost for a bit, and I was like, okay, cool. Kind of set that down, and yeah, it very much dissolved all of my fear of dying and kind of what happened when we leave this place. Is there anything on the other side? Like, I never knew what was going to happen. I'd heard ideas from other people, from other religions, from, just people in my life, but there may be this judgment, there may be, these pearly gates, this fire and brimstone potentially. I didn't experience any of that. I didn't experience any judgment. It was just all love. And it was a really magical experience for me. It kind of turned everything upside down and what I thought I knew up until that moment. And yeah, I don't know kind of how long I was there for. I remember being presented with a question and completely free of judgment. It was, do you want to stay or do you want to go back? And it wasn't loaded in any way. Like I had full choice and free will to do what I wanted in that moment. And I honestly didn't know what to do. This place was so wonderful. Like I didn't want to leave, but at the same time, I was aware of the circumstances that led me there. Like, well, if I choose to make this decision to stay at home and, experience this love and joy, what am I leaving behind for my family and for my friends and for the people that are going to find me and have to deal with this situation that I've created? And I couldn't bear the weight of that. So as much as I wanted to stay, there was some comfort in knowing that, when the time comes, I get to go back. So yeah, within that moment, I made my decision, and yeah, the next thing I knew, I was back in my body and I was awake. Quite a few hours had passed. It was a very strange thing to try and understand and unpick. Like I knew what had happened, but at the same time, it was so far out of my experience at that time. Like, what do I do now? But the following day, the food I ate that day tasted better than anything I'd ever eaten in my life. Stepping outside into the sunshine, just being able to breathe, to move, to just be alive felt like the greatest blessing I've ever received. So I'm so grateful for that, to be able to have that understanding and that knowing of, it is a privilege to be here. It's not a chore. In spite of all of the trials and the tribulations that I myself have been through, I don't pretend that, everything is all love and light all the time, because my life has never been that. There are moments of that for sure, but, I do but genuinely believe for myself that it is a blessing to be here and to be alive. Yeah, after having an experience like that, it's been a very long road of integration. I think there are lots of people out there that have had these profound experiences, and I've heard many stories of near-death experiences, and the correlations between them, for me, make it undeniable about what happens, that there are other realms, there are layers to reality that we can't perceive with our five senses, because, everything kind of matches up through people that have never had any interactions with each other. But the main difficulty that I've found is what to do with that experience. How do I now move through life like, everybody else? How do I kind of re-enter into day-to-day living? Like, because reality doesn't look the same anymore. Now things just look completely different. Like, I know that this isn't all that there is, and just going to the supermarket to buy groceries was a very bizarre experience a week after, having this whole thing happen and returning home and existing in different dimensions. It was quite the experience. So, yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the integration, because I don't think it's overlooked, but there aren't as many conversations around that. And I know that there are people that really struggle with life after death, basically. It's just a challenging thing. And for me, it was difficult. I mean, it still can be at times, So like initially, the first couple of weeks, I was filled with this new zest for life, and things were amazing. I was just so happy and excited to be here and to interact with this world and look at everything in a different way. And, life really got its magic back, and it was incredible. That did fade, though. That did fade. And then after a while, I began to look around and sort of think, well, this all feels a bit pointless, almost. It could seem a bit kind of futile. And that was a big challenge for me, to find purpose within this, looking around at the world and seeing everything that's going on. And I'm like, well, I know that there are all of these. I've had a little peek behind the curtain to see some different layers of reality, and then I've come back and I'm now looking around, seeing the pain and the suffering and the damage that we're doing to each other and to the planet that we live on. And it's difficult to re-enter into that and kind of find a place and a want and a purpose, I think, after an experience like that. Because as profound and as life-changing as that experience is, there isn't really there's no guidebook to know what to do with it afterwards. So then it becomes a bit of a personal journey of self-discovery, of, trying to understand more and understand more about myself and why am I here? Because it can't be by accident. None of us are here by accident. Statistically, it's just impossible, right? We're all here for a reason. So that ignited my journey of trying to figure out what that was. And I'm still on that journey now. I don't have it all figured out. It's very much a work in progress, but it's an exciting work in progress because it's fun, and I do get to, explore all of these different things and share my story with other people and, help in any way that I possibly can. So yeah, the journey certainly wasn't over. It wasn't I had this experience and then everything was fine. There's been a long road to get from that experience to where I am now. So yeah, so throughout all of this, this is where I have gone on a personal healing journey. Within that, I have trained in the fields that have helped me so much personally, and I have now made it my vocation and what I offer to the world. So I have trained as an energy healer, as a Qigong instructor, a sound healer, and a yoga instructor. And these, I get to do what I can to help people in the ways that I've been helped so dearly by fellow healers. So I now have my own healing business, and you can find me at soaringraven.net, and my social media is I'm on Instagram at soaringraven holistic healing. So yeah, my story is on there. I share very honestly about myself and my journey and how I got here, and I am open and always available to help anyone in any way that I can. So please reach out if any of this resonated with you. I'd just like to let everybody know that you are not alone. We are all in this together, and as cheesy as it may sound, like we don't have to do any of this alone. As isolating as certain experiences such as this can and may feel to people, there are many out there who have similar experiences, and we can all help each other. Shared experiences, what allows us to grow and to use these situations as opportunities to grow and to help other people. So yeah, there are communities available for anything that you may have gone through or are currently going through. So yeah, reach out.